All right. Enough of that. It is so easy to get carried away with these things. Oh my God. The classic Casio PT01. Whew. Spent hours doing that. And that's just the demo that comes built in with this lovely little thing. Yeah, it's me, Malcolm Tent. And this is indeed the latest episode of Tent Talks Tunes. And I'm here to talk tunes. We got some tunes here. Yep, we got tunes. We got tunes all over the place. We got tunes littering the landscape and flying all over the internet. Hope you guys are tuned in and checking this out. I am, as I always do, going to reach in real close and personal to the camera as I try to reach over to the controller here so I can make sure I am indeed going live over the dreaded Facebook, because you never know with these things. Sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't. Just because you see lights and a red indicator and a functioning screen, it doesn't mean you're actually going on live, but apparently I am. So it's safe for me to remove my face from the camera lens and hoist today's first sip of Danbury Tap. You'll notice it's not from my traditional gallon jug. It's actually from a sippy cup that I got from the Green Jersey in Clitheroe, England. Yes, the Green Jersey, Clitheroe, England, and it's a little bit leaky. What are you gonna do? This sippy cup has been across the ocean a couple of times with me and around the country a couple of times. The Green Jersey was a bicycle shop in Clitheroe, England. My good friend Tim Holhouse booked my first UK tour in, 2018, I think it was. And the Green Jersey was one of the stops. And it's the only time so far in my career I've ever played a bicycle store. I have played guitar stores, record stores, regular venues, probably every single room in a house that there is to play. I've played kitchens, living rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, back porches, backyards, front yards, attics, basements. I've played everywhere, but never a bicycle shop except for the Green Jersey in Clitheroe, so that was really cool. I always get very fond memories of Clitheroe, England, when I use my Green Jersey sippy cup. The Green Jersey's no longer there, sadly enough, but Clitheroe is. And what's really odd, and this is today's episode of Tent Talks Tunes, it's going to have a lot of interconnections to it, a lot of seemingly unrelated artists and themes and topics that actually do tie into each other. So here's one right off the bat. We have the Casio PT1, the first recorded instance of which on a record I ever heard was by The Fall. Now, of course, don't ask me to remember what song it was by The Fall, but it was by The Fall, and they did use the rhythm track on a Casio PT01. I think it was actually this very rhythm track right here. Let's see if I can find it. Nope, that ain't it. That ain't it. This is live TV here. Rhythm select. That wasn't it. When you guys hear it, you'll recognize it in a second. I think it was that one. So The Fall actually used one of these on one of their early albums, which was pretty outrageous because, you know, it's ostensibly a toy keyboard and not a serious instrument, but The Fall dared to do it, for which I always gave them big props. Now, what's that got to do with anything? Well, ironically enough, when I was out on my most recent tour, string of shows with my boys Antiseen, whose baseball jersey I am proudly and happily sporting, I stopped at one of my new favorite record stores, Siren Records, in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and was doing some buying, selling, bartering, and trading with them. And I came across an album by The Fall, which was recorded, guess what? At Clitheroe Castle. It's like, wow. The Fall, who used the Casio PT01, recorded an album at Clitheroe Castle, which is where the green jersey used to be, where I had a really good, fun gig with my pal Tim Holhouse. Cosmic, dude. Cosmic. Shows what a teensy-tiny, eensy-weensy little world we live in. When you get right down to it. Gregory Von Twinkle says, toy boards rule. And Mr. Von Twinkle, you are correct. The reason why I have this thing out is because I've been doing a lot of heavy-duty prepping for this event right here. The Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. Because as I have mentioned before on Tent Talks Tunes, I've been a long-time, loud and proud adopted son of the Nutmeg State. But my destiny now lies in the Tar Heel State of North Carolina. That's where I've got one good band and one good woman waiting for me. And I cannot think of any better reasons than to pull up stakes and move the whole shebang back down to my southern homeland. Because indeed, I was born in Columbia, South Carolina, raised in Florida, emigrated to Connecticut in 1986. I've been here ever since, and I'll be honest, kids, I love Connecticut. I love Connecticut. I love the people. I love the land. I love the culture. I've got a really awesome little cabin in the woods out here. There is nothing wrong with Connecticut. You will never hear me bad-mouthing Connecticut. It's with a slight sense of bittersweetness that I am leaving Connecticut. But I've got so many good things waiting for me in North Carolina that I cannot complain or find anything bad about it. It's going to be a really good, positive, forward movement. What does that have to do with the Casio PT-1 or anything? Well, the fact is, I just got too much stuff. Too much stuff. Having been in the business since 1986, full-time of buying, selling, and trading stuff accumulates. And, you know, the way I make my living is by exercising my interests in hobbies, which involve going to flea markets, going to thrift shops, going to record stores, and just picking through the boxes and the bins and the racks and the shelves looking for goodies, which I can then buy and, either keep for myself or sell. And so one of my great weaknesses revealed itself when I found this very Casio PT-01 at a thrift shop in West Haven. It was sitting in a whole bunch of toys, and I was like, oh my god, I remember these things. These were like cutting-edge portable technology when they first came out. And there's one for 99 cents here at the thrift shop, so I, of course, bought it. Was delighted to find that it worked perfectly. Kept it. And so from that moment on, I just really kept an eye open for any kind of, what did Gregory Von Twinkle call them? Toy boards. I like that. Never heard that term. Von Twinkle, thank you for the term toy boards. Every time I see one of these things and it's a reasonable price, I buy it. So as a result, I ended up with about 40 of them over the years. And I never really went through them and organized them or analyzed them until I realized I was going to have to be moving. And it just didn't make any sense to haul 40 toy boards with me to North Carolina. So I began the process of going through them, and I realized that, okay, yeah, I do have duplicates on a couple of these, and basically each manufacturer has its own distinct set of sounds. Like a Casio basically only has, 2 or 3 sound libraries. So if you have 1 or 2 different Casio keyboards, you really have everything you need by them. You don't need a dozen different Casio keyboards. You can narrow it down to just a couple. So that's what I've been doing. I narrowed it down to just a couple that I want to keep and that I will use for recording projects and for playing live. And the rest are going to the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. As you can see, the date and location are to be announced. I have not settled on the where and the when that this megalithic, massophonic event is going to happen. But it is going to happen before the end of the summer. This I know, because I really I want to be out of here, or at least have my house on the market by the end of the year. That's my stated goal. And so the other stated goal is to get this place cleared out and lighter of stuff and heavier with the cash to help me with my moving expenses, so I can then put the house on the market by the end of the summer. That's what I'm looking at. So once I really sit down and decide on an exact date, I will let all of you guys know. Because core blimey, by gum, by cracky, holy cannoli, have I got a lot of stuff. So far I've sorted through the toy boards, my effects pedals. I am almost done with sorting through mounds of VHS tapes, piles and mountains of cassettes. I've started on the books. I'm not totally sure if I'm going to do records in the pop-up store, because records are my main bread and butter 24/7, and I always have an outlet for records. But these other things, knickknacks, just knickknacks, framed art, things that might be antiques, like those kinds of things I don't normally have an outlet for. So that's what the pop-up store is going to be all about. And that's why I've accumulated so much, because I just never had anywhere to sell it. So that's all going to be resolved at the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store, which will be happening before the cold winter sets in. So I would say mark your calendars, but I have no date to give you just yet. Let's see here. Since we got your attention drawn to the bulletin board, let's see what's happening here in the world of Malcolm Tent. Well, a special show, a gig. Yes, I'm playing a solo gig, June 28th, at Red Scroll Records in Wallingford, Connecticut. I will be sharing the bill with the one, the only, the great Brute Force. Brute Force. Any of you fans of eccentric music out there, of kind of weird, wild, wow, bizarre pop song crafting, I would hope you know the name Brute Force. I would hope you know his album entitled Confections of Love. I would hope you know his single that came out on Apple Records called The King of Pho. To put it briefly, he was a Tin Pan Alley songwriter. He's probably got 1,000 songwriting credits under his belt. Many, many hit records. But on his own, he does that kind of really wacky, left-to-center, eccentric songwriting that I love so much. And Confections of Love, his album on Columbia Records from 1968, is a prime, perfect example of that. He's still at it. He's still active. He's still cranking it out. And I am delighted to be sharing the stage with him June 28th, Red Scroll Records, Wallingford, Connecticut, a rare solo appearance by me. Speaking of rare appearances, how about a rare appearance by my all-improv space rock Ultrabunny? We're sharing the stage with Martin Beasy, Mustafina, and No Love Songs. That's June 14th, Young Ethel's in Brooklyn. This is something that does not happen very often, and once I have pulled up stakes and moved up to North Carolina, it's going to be happening a lot less often. So get you some Ultrabunny, June 14th. It's a free show. There's not even a door charge on this thing, so that should be incentive for you to book an airplane flight or hire a dog sled team and get your yayas up to Brooklyn to catch Ultrabunny. I will drink to that. Brian Russell says that his Casio PTO1 is white colored, and the keys are probably different colors. Yep. Apparently they did several different color variants, white being the standard. It's just pure dumb luck that the first one I found was pink. I guess they also did blue and maybe green. I'm keeping the pink one. The pink one I'm keeping, the white one I'm selling. What else is on the bulletin board? Well, speaking of gigs, June 22nd, Ground Zero, Spartanburg, South Carolina. I Hate God, Antiseen, and J.D. Pincus, celebrating the 28th anniversary of the Ground Zero. One of our favorite venues. We love playing there. It's our home away from home. And it is going to be a super bonus, not bogus, bonus event. It's also going to be the debut at the merch tables of the brand new split cassette Antiseen on one side, I Hate God on the other. 5 years in the making. 5 years in the making. June 22nd, ground zero. You'll finally get your chance to grab it. And I'll keep that one. Don't worry about that. And also what's coming up, man? Well, we got the Punk Rock Flea slideshow on June 29th, which is pretty exciting. I'll be set up with two full tables of merch, records, tapes, CDs, TPOS product, all the good stuff. Punk Rock Flea Sideshow at the Lost Souls Collective in Waterbury, Connecticut. Don't miss it. Man, what a schedule. June 22nd in Spartanburg, June 28th in Wallingford, June 29th in Waterbury. I never stop. So, what else is going on here? Mail call. Very brief, and here is where some more interconnections are going to be revealed, strictly by accident, purely accidental. That this arrived in the mail, and that I found a certain item at the recent record show in Maplewood, New Jersey, and a certain item at a thrift shop in Monroe, Connecticut. Count them, 3 exciting items from 3 different places, each dating from 3 different times, all somehow interrelated. So why don't we open up this package first? You'll notice it has been thoughtfully addressed to Malcolm Tent, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. A very fine address. People have asked me, are you still taking mail at P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470? The answer is yes. Until further notice, and maybe even beyond that, I will be taking mail at P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. Even after I've moved to North Carolina, they will be forwarding the mail to me at my new post office. So fear not, everybody. I'll get it. Let me reach over here to the 1 or 2 mile box cutter. Oh, we got a hot flash from Amy Lynn Myers. Amy Lynn Myers says, and I quote, "Man, we found the Gentry's album you recently mentioned for $1. All right, now that's a score. Yes. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago here on 10 Talks Tunes. The Gentry's, featuring the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart on lead vocals. An album called Keep On Dancin' on the extremely lame MGM Records label. It's a wonder they had a hit at all being on MGM. But apparently the Gentry's did sell a few records, and so the Myerses found one for $1. Mazel tov, guys. Congratulations. See, I normally get 15 for them, so if you can get a $15 record for $1, that is always a good thing. No evil there. So here we go. The box cutter is being put into play. We are gently opening this CD-sized box. I already know what's in this thing. This was something that I had an opportunity to mail order. And I had a couple of bucks left over from some of my recent selling expeditions, so I treated myself to this. This is something that is really special and is not going to be happening very much in the future. And boy, do they seal this thing up tight. I cut all the tape and it still doesn't want to open. See if we can do this. Live. It does not want to open. Alan Versapella says he found copies of his first solo CD. It's the worst album ever, so he'll send me a copy. Well, you know what? Anytime I hear that something is going to be the worst anything, I'm automatically interested. So yeah, man. Send me it, and I'll let you know if it really is the worst album ever. I have, as you know, there's a lot of competition for that title, so... In fact, I'll be showing one in about a minute. I think I told you guys the story about when I read a newspaper review in the Miami Herald about Rush, the Canadian band Rush. And the reviewer said that Rush was the worst band ever. I was so disappointed to find out that they were just bad. They weren't the worst band ever, they were just bad. I still don't like Rush. Quite doubtful that I ever will. So here we go. This is definitely a rare, precious, and beautiful artifact from the Dream House installation in New York City. And I'm seeing this for the first time. I don't know if the resolution will reveal, but there's a very subtle sort of black on black design, marred only by the barcode on the back. It is a CD. You open it up. A disc with more black on black, and more black on black. Plenty more of that where that came from. I haven't seen what I'm hoping to see yet. Let's take a look at the booklet inside there. Crikey, I just ripped the damn thing. That's not cool. Folds open into a poster. What you're seeing here is genuine, unless I'm totally missing something, amongst all this black on black. Wouldn't it be interesting if there was a... there's supposed to be a signature on this. This is supposed to be a signed Monte Young CD, but I don't see a signature anywhere on it. Ah, there it is. There it is. As we might have guessed, black on black. I wonder if you guys can even see this, but it's on the inside panel. I'm just going to show you some light there. Hopefully that the signature will reflect. I'm really not sure. Yeah, you can kind of see it. But yes, signed by Monte Young. This is a Monte Young signed disc of the Black Album. And that's really cool. Monte Young, I think, is about 84 years old at this time. He's in a wheelchair, but God bless him, he's still performing at the Dream House. His longtime wife and collaborator, Miriam Zazila, recently departed planet Earth. So it kind of reminds us all of the mortality that we all face and the fact that when you have an opportunity, you got to seize it. And so they offered these signed CDs by Monte Young, and it was like, you know what? I better grab one now, and I'm glad I did, because Monte Young, and this is where the web of interconnections comes in. Monte Young, and I've talked about him before, so please bear with me if I am giving you information you already know, but Monte Young was most likely the inventor of minimalist composition. His compositions tend to run into the hours in length, sometimes years, and they're all, like, as the genre would imply, minimalist. They're based on the drones that you find in Indian ragas, and the drones that he heard when he was a child growing up, made by electrical transformers and electrical appliances. He heard these hums and these drones and these tones, and he used them as the foundation for an entire compositional style. So if you've ever heard an Indian raga, the droning that you hear of the tamboras it's really key to the sound. And so his entire style is based on that. And he and Yoko Ono pretty much single-handedly created the entire loft art scene in New York City in the early 60s. And Monte Young took on students and followers, amongst them being Tony Conrad, Terry Riley, and of course the one that floated my boat, John Cale. Now John Cale, if you don't know John Cale, guys, I really hope you would look him up. But John Cale is the man who brought the true avant-garde to the Velvet Underground. He's the one who brought the drones and the minimalist playing style. He's the one who, when he found this guy Lou Reed, who was toiling away as an hourly wage slave at Pickwick Records, grinding out cheap exploitation records like this one, that I found at a thrift shop recently. The Surfsiders sing the Beach Boys songbook. This is one of those magnificently, beautifully terrible, cheesy cash-in records that you guys have heard me talk so much about here on Tent Talks Tunes. First time I ever saw this record, I knew I had to buy it for $1. So I picked it up, and yeah, sure enough, it's got these really just wonderfully terrible, borderline inept, overly exuberant versions of Beach Boys songs. And this was made in 1964, so it's all their surfing stuff. And it's got the most raucous, lame-brained versions of Help Me Rhonda, I Get Around, Little Deuce Coupe, Fun, Fun, Fun. I loved this album from the minute I heard it because it was just so bad. But I really popped my cork when it was pointed out to me, I'm pretty sure by my friend Andy Crespo, who runs Electric Eye Records up in East Hampton, Massachusetts. He pointed out that Lou Reed is one of the singers and the guitar player on this album. And sure enough, if you listen real close, if you get out your microscopic ear and really strain it, you will indeed hear Lou Reed. He does lead vocals on 2 of the songs, maybe 3. Something like that. I can do a 3. I'm a smart guy. Yeah, there we go. 3. Lead vocals on 3, perhaps 2 definitely songs. It's his rhythm guitar playing all over it. And in the delightfully bad chorus of backing singers, he does the baritone vocals, all the bow, 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 bows. That's Lou Reed. So when Lou Reed cut his teeth and earned his paychecks doing this kind of stuff, and then met John Cale, who was the true avant-garde. And, I guess Lou Reed always had a propensity for that kind of thing. And the two bonded over their commonality and just merged their 2 styles and brought Sterling Morrison and Maureen Tucker on board, and voila, Velvet Underground. So yes, it all started really, if you want to talk about the classic Velvet Underground sound, it started with Monte Young, whose CD I mail-ordered, and whose indirect student, Lou Reed, I just found at a thrift shop. And in a further web of interconnections, Amy Lynn Myers has just called me Mr. Fancy Pants with a water bottle instead of a jug today. The camera angle does not reveal it, but indeed my pants are very fancy. They are really super deluxe today. It's a shame you guys can't see them, but Amy, you called it. Fancy pants to the max. In fact, they're about to get fancier because you know what's about to happen. If the pants weren't fancy enough, this guy is going to grace them. Yes, here he is. He's been absent for a week or 2, but he's on camera now. He's on board, and he's stealing the scenes like he always does. Mr. Harry the Cat. Hi. T. Cadef wants to know if it's Avion. Well, if Avion has begun supplying the Danbury Municipal Water Supply, I guess maybe it is. But I don't know. No one told me. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. I'm just the guy who does Tent Talks Tunes. I know nothing. Nothing at all. Tastes the way it usually does. A little more plastic because of the composition of the bottle, but I think it's just regular old Danbury tap still. So anyway, I found this record at the Maplewood, New Jersey thrift shop by TPOS recording artist, Steam Age Time Giant, a.k.a. Nelson Slater. Now, Nelson Slater, this guy's the real deal. He absolutely qualifies as an outsider artist. I am very happy to have him on my label TPOS. I put him right up there with guys like Gary Forney, who is a recent releasee on TPOS. Songwriters like Peter Stubb, who are just fantastic. and who are coming at you from a completely different point of view. So yeah, I found this record by Nelson Slater, aka the Steam Age Time Giant, that I didn't have before. How does that interconnect with anybody or anything? Well, Lou Reed, before he got his slave job at the songwriting factory in Long Island, had a college roommate. You guessed it, Nelson Slater. Mr. Nelson Slater himself. Besides being a talented and unique songwriter in his own right, his pedigree boasts college roommate of Lou Reed. And in fact, that's how Nelson Slater got put on the map in the first place, because Lou Reed produced his solo debut album on RCA Records. I think it was 1976-ish. An album called Wild Angel, which is really cool. If you can find it, get it. And Nelson Slater's been at it ever since. He's released a ton of dang stuff. I didn't have this one in my collection. Now I do. So there you go. Lou Reed, Nelson Slater, Monte Young. One via the other. The web of interconnections. Boy, I'll drink to that. Might as well talk about a couple other things I found at the Maplewood record swap, because I am a collector. I should mention that I found a whole pile of 7-inch 45 records, or 45 RPM 7-inch records, that I am going to sell. This one guy was selling a big old stack of latter-day hardcore stuff. You know, what you got here? You got your Integrity. No, we'll get to that one in a second. Release and Courage, put out on a Connecticut label, which is called Threshold. Connecticut. Release from New Jersey. Hard Stance. Hole, not really hardcore, but you know, from that era. SSD Control. Touchdown. This guy had a lot of great stuff. The Vicious Circle Change for the Better. Hello, Dave in DC. If you're out there watching, Eye for an Eye. Another type of hardcore, Drop Dead. And then he had a few records which I personally popped for, half Japanese. The Spy in the House of Love. This record is fantastic. Out of all the many records I've purged out of my personal collection over the years, this is not one of them. My copy of this record stays in my personal collection forever. But the spare is up for grabs. If you don't know half Japanese, look them up. Excuse me. Double A-side killer. Spy on the A. And the B has I Know How It Feels. Bad. Put half Japanese right up there with guys like Nelson Slater, Peter Stubb, Gary Forney. All geniuses. All outsiders. We also got some Killdozer. We got some Big Black. We got the Jam. And of course, what made me the happiest was, lo and behold, not one, but 2 records by that little old band I'm in, the one I'm moving to North Carolina, to be a permanent part of. You saw that happen live. I dropped it, but it's still intact, and its condition is still pristine. Look at that. 2 45s by Antiseen, Psycho Killer, and, coincidence or design? Another in those never-ending interconnections. I found the record, and now I'm showing it to you while I wear the shirt. The first definitive Antiseen record, Blood of Freaks. Found them both at one table at the record swap. Obviously, I've got both of these already, so these are up for grabs too, along with those hardcore records I showed you. What else did I find? More interconnections. As you guys know, I have recently done a couple of tours with Profanatica, America's first ever black metal band. I did 2 runs around the country with them. Great fun. On the last run, we were with 2 bands, and I found records by each of them. An album by Tombs from New Jersey and New York via Connecticut. Really cool to find a full-length vinyl LP by Tombs. They were a fine band. I enjoyed sharing the stage with them every night for almost 3 weeks with the last Profanatica run I did. And also on the bill, none other than Nunslaughter. Profanatica, Tombs, and Nunslaughter. So I, who was late of Profanatica, found records by our tour mates, Tombs and Nunslaughter, at one record show. Interconnections. The world gets tinier and tinier by the second. I will raise my cup from the green jersey in Clitheroe, England, and drink to that. Yum, yum. I also found a record. This is a band I think I've talked about on Tent Talks Tunes before. Really underrated. You find these guys' records in the cheap bins all the time, everywhere. And this is a group that I wish more people knew about. A group called Blue in Heaven. Now, I talked about their first album, which was called All the Gods Men. And it's another one of those records you just see in the cheap bins everywhere. But I was taking a look at it, and I saw that it was produced by Martin Hannett, the producer primarily of Buzzcocks, Joy Division, New Order, John Cooper Clarke. I mean, classic, genius producer. And he produced this band that I'd never heard of before. So, of course, I threw down the dollar for it, took it home, fell in love with it. Awesome stuff. And, you know, I've talked before about how I've got a goth streak about this wide. You wouldn't know it by the scruffy exterior, but I've got some goth in me. And Blue in Heaven, I think, qualify as an excellent goth band. So imagine my surprise and delight when I found a copy of their second album at the record swap, also for $1. And who produced this one? Another really classy producer. Chris Blackwell produced this. And Eric E.T. Thorngren and the band Blue in Heaven. So that's a real class lineup of producers. So I'm really curious to hear about this one. I'm going to give this a spin sometime, and when I do, I'll bring it back and give you guys a critique. So all you goth kids out there, if you don't already know about Blue in Heaven, you might want to check them out. I definitely recommend that album, All the Gods Men, produced by Martin Hannett. Great album. And you should be able to find it quite affordably. Here's another one of those pleasant surprises. Amy Lynn Myers is in there again, saying that she loves the Antiseen version of Psycho Killer even more so than the Talking Heads. Well, thank you, Amy. That is strong praise indeed. Because let's face it, Talking Heads version ain't too bad either. I will mention, too, that I enjoy playing Psycho Killer a lot. I mean, that bass line, you know, doom, 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 doom. Technically, it's 3 notes, but it's really just 2. Man, that's all you need. Some say that all you need is love. I say that all you need is that bass line. Here's another record that you see in the cutout bins and the cheap bins everywhere, and you usually do not pay any attention to it. I don't pay any attention to it. This one right here, The Beatles Tell All. This album was counterfeited left, right, and center, top and bottom, front to back. I mean, there are probably literally millions of counterfeit copies of this album out there. So, who cares? But I'm such a mark for the Beatles that every time I see a Beatles record, I just look at it. And, you know, I saw this and I picked it up and it looked pretty clean. And I was like, you know what? I don't have it. It's $1. Why not? You know, and quite often they're like really beat up or poorly pressed. Imagine my surprise when I took it home and gave it a really careful look, and it's actually a real one. It's kind of like the Introducing the Beatles album, which also was on VJ, on the Rainbow and Brackets label. The counterfeits way, way, way outnumber the legit pressings of the Beatles VJ records. Far more so in the case of this one than Introducing the Beatles. This is the only non-counterfeit of this record I've ever seen. And, you know, it's not really worth a whole lot of money. It's not like a big thing that anybody's going to pay an arm or another appendage for, but it's just cool. It's just cool to actually have a real one instead of a fake one. And you can differentiate the real ones from the fake ones because of the quality of the colors on the rainbow. The counterfeits have very low res, lo-fi, crude looking colors. And even the real VJs aren't that great, but it's a lot better than the ones in the counterfeits. So, go figure, I accidentally scored a real copy of this album, which is most likely very cheesy. Reading the productions, it's produced by Lou Adler, and it is indeed a Dunhill production. Lou Adler later went on to form Dunhill Records, home of the Mamas and the Papas, Steppenwolf. I think Barry McGuire was on Dunhill. So it's with this real cheeseball record that Lou Adler apparently started his career. And this one's real. It's not a fake. Does anybody care? I don't know, but I'm happy about it. It's this little tiny minutia of record collecting that I love so much. Just love so much. I want to give a brief update before I dig into the next web of interconnections. I've showed this before, and I teased it a little bit. I just want to let you all know that I have not forgotten. This is the cassette I started making of notes for my G.G. Allen psychiatric evaluation. I'm going to do a special dedicated episode of Tent Talks Tunes about G.G. Allen's psychological makeup. And let me tell you, brothers and sisters, that is a huge topic. It is a huge, deep topic. And the reason I'm going to do it is primarily because, you know, I'm a fan of G.G. Allen. Some people love him, some people hate him. I'm fascinated by the guy, and he produced a lot of really good music. And his psychology, no one's going to deny that his psychology is very interesting. So people knowing that, you know, here in the internet age, they send me links and things like that to articles and stuff like that. And I got a couple of links to internet and YouTube psychologists who did their own psychological evaluations of G.G. Allen. And they're not that great. They're not great at all. And you can tell that these people don't really know who he is or understand him, you know, because it's not their thing. Their thing is these sort of thumbnail psychological evaluations of known or notorious people. So they'll read the Wikipedia entry and then based on that, do a quick analysis and then move on to the next one. So considering that these people take their information from the most cursory surface source material, all right, they do pretty good. But as somebody who, like, you know, actually knew the guy and worked with him, and more critically is friends with a lot of people who really knew the guy and really were friends with him and did a lot of work with him, it just kind of irked me that these people only skim the surface. So I really started thinking about it. I really started taking notes. I really started to put the pieces together. And so I'm going to sit right here in my armchair and do my own amateur armchair psychological evaluation of Gigi based on what I have talked about with people who really knew him. And I'm talking about people who were close with him. And also my own observations and other information I've gathered hither and yon. I'm trying to put the whole thing together into one vegan pot pie and serve the entire thing to you. So I've been dictating the notes for it for like literally months. In fact, here's my first set of notes that I made for it dates back to July of 21. So we're talking about 3 years now. I've been piecing this thing together. And it is coming together. It is taking shape. And it does make sense. So just a reminder that I'm still on it. It is still going to happen. And I think it should be pretty informative. If all goes well, it's going to be pretty darn informative. So keep your eye and your ear open. Elvis. 2 VHSs of Elvis movies. I mentioned before, I'm going to be selling a lot of danged VHSs in the Trash American style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. And I got a pile of Elvis movies. And let's be honest, guys. Let's be frank. Let's tell it like it is. Elvis movies are pretty bad. They are pretty bad. They are lightweight, they're fluffy, they're badly written. Most of the songs in them are terrible. They existed only as a vehicle for Colonel Tom Parker to squeeze every single dime he could out of his boy Elvis. Apparently and allegedly to pay his massive gambling debts in Las Vegas. I just read it. I don't make it up. So, Elvis movies, oh my God. But what's the web of interconnections? How do these two movies specifically, Clambake and The Trouble with Girls, have any sort of interconnections to anything? Well, it's really interesting. Clambake, and this is really, I'm kind of cheating a little bit because the song, the immortal, amazing song, Do the Clam. Do the clam, do the clam. Come on and grab your barefoot baby by the hand. Turn and tease, hug and squeeze. Dig right in and do the clam. Possibly the best bad Elvis song ever. Do the Clam it's beyond immortal. It's got feet of clay. So Do the Clam is not in Clambake, but I saw the movie Clambake and I was triggered to think of Do the Clam. What's the interconnection that interests me and my weird-ass taste in music and my fascination with bizarre junk culture, and maybe yours as well? The fact that Do the Clam was written by Ed Wood's girlfriend. And I keep wanting to call her Doris Wishman, but I know it's not Doris Wishman. I really think her first name was Doris. But Ed Wood, the guy who made Plan 9 from Outer Space, the guy who gave us Bride of the Atom, the man who was single-handedly responsible for Glenn or Glenda, the man whose very same girlfriend does appear in a couple of those movies, she wrote Do the Clam, sung by Elvis. So Elvis is only 1 degree of separation from Ed Wood. Think about that for a second. How wild is that? And Gary Forney comes in with the answer, and then Brian Russell. Dolores Fuller. Thank you. Dolores Fuller. I kept wanting to say Doris, but yes, Dolores Fuller. Amy Lynn Myers is jerking everybody's chain. She says it sounds like it should be a Cramp song. Well, you know what? It definitely should have been. Check out that awesome live album, Rockin' and Reelin' in Auckland, New Zealand, and hear the Cramps doing Do the Clam. Oh boy. Fasten your seatbelts, kids. Dolores Fuller, Ed Wood's girlfriend. Probably the only human being on the planet who pressed flesh with both Elvis Presley and Ed Wood. Unless Tor Johnson ever shook hands with Elvis, I don't know. All things are possible in this world. Very possible. And then what else we got here? The Trouble with Girls and how to get into it. How does this relate to my love for the bizarre, the outside, the outré, the weird, the incongruous, the unscrutable? Well, I won't say starring, but a guy who appears in that movie, The Trouble with Girls, is a guy named Gene Marshall. Gene Marshall! And it's kind of ironic that Gary Forney is tuned in right now because Gary has experience in this field. Gary has created some great music in this idiom, which I'm also very happy to have on TPOS. If you guys haven't looked up Gary Forney yet, do it. do yourselves a favor. Check the man out. I wouldn't release his stuff if I didn't think it was ace bitchin'. But Gene Marshall. Gene Marshall. Does the name ring a bell to anybody? Does anybody know the name Gene Marshall? I'll give you a clue. Gene Marshall is in the same movie as TPOS artist Gary Forney. Which means really, So if this guy is in the same movie as Gary Forney, and he was also in the same movie as Elvis, how many degrees of separation does that make me from Elvis? Does that mean that Gary Forney is only 1 degree separated from Elvis? The mind boggles at the possibility. But Gene Marshall, if the great Rod Keefe, a.k.a. Rod Rogers, a.k.a. Rod Eskelin, was the Stravinsky of song poems, then Gene Marshall was the James Brown of song poems. James Brown was no doubt the hardest working man in the song poem business, and sure enough, Gary Forney nailed it. Jimmy Carter Says Yes, one of the all-time classic song poem creations, sung by Gene Marshall, who is in that movie with Elvis, who is in the movie with Gary Forney, who is a TPOS recording artist. Yes, that puts Elvis 1 degree of separation from the wild world of song poems. And I'm just going to go ahead and say 1 degree of separation from Gary Forney. What do you guys think? Should we get a vote of yes on that? A thumbs up, affirming that Gary Forney is basically tag team partners with Elvis? I think that in a just and honorable world, the answer would be yes. Just like Jimmy Carter says yes, I say yes. How about it? How about it? How about it? Gene Marshall is a guy I've never met. As far as I know, he's still alive. But if I ever get a chance to meet him, I would definitely shake his hand, because he has sung some of my favorite songs ever. And this is a note to Mr. Dennis Hyland of Jackhammer Music. I have finished digitizing all of the song poem albums that I owe you, and Gene Marshall is on a bunch of them. And you're going to hear some really cool stuff. And a lot of it is going to be released on TPOS somewhere down the road. So you guys heard it first. And I'm drinking to it. Man, Elvis, Gene Marshall, Dolores Fuller, Gary Forney, Nelson Slater, Lou Reed, Lamont Young, Tombs, Nunslaughter, Profanatica, Antiseen, Little Ol' Me. It really is a small world after all. And I want to thank you guys for visiting my small corner of this small world for the last hour. It's always a pleasure to expound and wax rhapsodic for you guys. I love reading your comments. You guys teach me a lot. You know, it's like I get the comments a lot that I teach you a lot. Well, you guys teach me a lot. I've gone down a lot of really wonderful rabbit holes that you guys have turned me on to. And that's, for me, what really keeps it real and exciting and interesting and a lot of fun. And those are the true dividends of doing Tent Talks Tunes. So thank you for everything. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for contributing. I'm already looking forward to 167 hours from now when I bring you the next episode of Tent Talks Tunes. And so I'm going to grab the trusty old pink Casio PT-01, turn it on, and I'm going to sing you guys back home. Until we meet again, this is Malcontent saying, so long from the Nutmeg State.